Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Human Now show. I'm your host, Jennifer Locksmith, and tonight I am grateful to have Rod Williamson from Lodge Tales podcast with us. Rod lives on the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana and has had some very compelling supernatural and spiritual experiences in his life. He's doing a great service to humanity by using his show to give his fellow Native Americans an outlet to share their strange experiences and spiritual insights. Ronnie, thank you so much for your work. You're ultimately helping to bring back something modern society has lost and desperately needs to rekindle. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So that was a very short intro I just did for you, but would you mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and what inspired you to start your show, Lodge Tales?
Yeah, so I grew up on the Blackfeet Res in Montana, and to why I started the show is because I didn't see a lot of Native American type podcasts going
Mm-hmm.
on, and I thought there was a void that I could try and help fill. Now there's more and more of the Native podcasters
Mm-hmm.
coming out and doing more, and we all encourage each other, and so hopefully this space becomes a little wider.
Yeah.
But I there's very few of us that are kind of doing this, and you know, I think if more of us do it, more of our stories will be out there, and I think there's something everybody can take away from some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah. Your show is awesome. And I do feel like you're going to inspire more and more people to step up and start telling their own stories, but also maybe create their own shows with their own little separate topics to them.
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
great.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have said one of the things we call the show Being Human Now, which kind of touches on the being, which is the spirit, and then the human, which is we're made up of the bone, flesh, blood of the earth. But I've heard you say, and I'd like you to explain it in your own terms, that you've said that each human being is in two worlds, the physical and the spiritual. So obviously, I feel like that aligns perfectly with the show, and it's a major theme we like to touch on. Would you mind explaining a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, like we believe that we all have a spirit, right? Everything in nature has a spirit or a life force, if that's kind of how it's
Yeah,
referred to as well. But
yeah,
we we're in two places always, because our
mm,
spirit's attached to our body. It's like our consciousness is two things. It's like this physical and this spirit, there, and the consciousness or spirit, whatever, when it moves
yeah,
on, of course it leaves the body. So there are times when you're dreaming and you wake up and you're thinking, wow, that was a really powerful dream. What did it mean?
yeah,
Those are the times where your spirit actually left your body and traveled. It's what we think.
yeah,
And these are not ideas that we just come up with overnight. These have been passed down to us from our elders from, tens of thousands of years. And so we still have that belief system in place, surrounding all of this. So that's kind of, I guess, in my own words, what that is when we're in two places. We're two. There's two of us. We live in a duality, right? We got the
yeah,
physical world and we got the spirit world, and we're part of both. So I guess a small little example is people always say, you'll hear people say something like, "I got a really bad feeling around that person," or "There's something here. What's going on here? Something's just bugging you." That's your
yeah,
spirit telling you. It's sensing things, and because everything around, like, there's such a thin line between us and that spirit world. It's just right here. It's just
yeah,
right there. And so we feel it, but we don't really know what to do, like to make of it. You know, we get confused by it,
hmm,
myself included. It's one of those hard things to kind of figure out, and a lot of times you always seek answers for it, or I mean, you just can't help but wonder why, and so you got to kind of deal with that in your own way.
yeah. And so you mentioned the spirit is the life force. Would you say that that runs through everything, including, I mean, the animals, the plants, the everything we share
Yeah.
this physical realm with?
everything, even rocks, water.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, even like the directions, even the four directions, it's in everything, all of existence that's natural. There are a few things you can make where a spirit or a life force can come into that thing, but in general, everything in nature, I'm talking every star, every planet, everything is got a life force within it. So again, back to that, excuse me, back to that duality.
Yeah.
That's that life force is in everything, so you can never really separate it. It's always there. It's always in everything. So yeah, that's kind of and life force is really. I could go. Well, let me explain it like this. It goes pretty deep.
Yeah.
It's like
Go for
let's
it.
so say I'm
Yeah.
sitting there and I'm praying and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just by myself
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here and what's really happening there and on a spiritual um level is you're directing your life force to somebody else and you're trying to transform that person or that situation into something more positive.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's happening. So if we can elaborate more on thoughts, that's where that comes into play. Your thoughts are powerful. They shape your reality. They shape the world you live in. And with that, your thoughts, you can harm somebody or you can lift them up.
Yeah.
So you really got to be careful of that. And not only that, the in that spirit world, they know what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They know it's all energy. We're all energy, and whatever you're giving off by way of your thoughts too, they can sense that. So you will, just by having bad thoughts consistently, you will attract something negative to you, a spirit that's, not so good. And it might be attached to you because of the way you think and the way you are.
Yeah.
And same with the good. If you're always good, you're always allowing that positive, life force to come into your life.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something really beautiful, and I think this was a quote that you had heard yourself is thoughts, thoughts travel.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which you just described that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
love
that's
that.
true. The elders say that.
Yeah.
They tell us that from when we were small. If you grew up in that traditional way, not
Mm-hmm.
everybody does. Not every indigenous person or in this case Native American is raised that way. The boarding schools, the residential schools had a huge
Mm.
negative impact on that
Yeah.
traditional way and mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. They tried to take it from you guys, but I'm
Mhm.
glad that would you say a lot of youth is trying to get back to the
Yeah.
ways?
Yeah, the younger
Good.
ones are they're more geared toward that. You see a lot of it more today than even when I was growing up, and I'm 48 now, but
Mm-hmm.
I see it now that there's more kids involved with it than in my generation even, and more in my generation than my parents, you know. So
Yes.
it's more and more
We're
and
getting
more I see.
back. We're going, you guys are going back in the right direction. That makes me really happy to hear that. Makes
Yeah,
me
me
really
too.
happy. Um, so what were we talking about? Yeah, speaking of, yeah, I've thought about like it's vibratory reality, and I think I even wrote to you before we talked how it, even that the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto kind of relates to what we're talking about how, he did that experiment using words with water and how he would say like I love you and I hate you and how different the water looked depending on what words he attached just to the glass of water. So it's just very, very interesting. Um,
Again, the thoughts transform that, they
yeah.
they transform that water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, and so, okay, so you have had, let's get into it. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because, we've established that this world is real. Um, and you have had a lot of supernatural paranormal experiences throughout your life. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is to share some of those because I think they're fascinating and very telling. Um, is there anywhere you'd like to start with that? Or I've got a few things written down here if you just want to
Well,
jump right in.
the first paranormal experience I ever had, was of course with those talking owls. It
Oh
was
yeah.
the first time anything like that ever. So I was really small, and I want to say I was in Head Start or preschool or whatever, but I was pretty young. I must have been about, geez, maybe six, if that.
Yeah.
So my folks would go over across the creek from where I grew up at, and my uncle had a horse ranch there, and they would party, and they would carry on all night, sometimes, and so we would stay in. My older cousins, my sisters, they would kind of take care of me and put me in a room with them, and that's where we kind of basically just go to sleep. But we could hear them, how we fell asleep. To be laughing, singing, crying, and
Yeah.
anyways, one night that was going on, and I was in the room with my sisters, and I heard them all go running outside. I heard a bunch of boots go running outside. A little tiny house. It's
Uh-huh.
got just a little kitchen, front doors right here, and then you get the bedroom that's back there with the bathroom attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
All little living room, just a small one bedroom little house. And
Yeah.
I heard them all go running out. And before my sisters could stop me, because they made me a bed like right there by the door, kind of not too close to the door, but like like so I wouldn't get hit. But
Yeah.
I was laying there and I got tired of watching that show, so I just laid down. And when well, for one, I was on the floor, so it really sounded loud to me when they went running out. And I jumped up and I opened that door and I ran out. I seen the front door ahead of me. I jump off the porch, and as I do, I look, and I could see my uncles kind of like standing together like this, and they're yelling across where you pull in at. There's a little tiny barn with some corrals there, and I see them yelling that way, and they're saying, "Get out of here, go away," and throwing rocks, and one of my uncles is
Uh,
picking up like an old hose, and he's trying to swing that, and
oh my
one
gosh.
of my uncles, it looked like he was actually reaching into his waistline to pull out maybe his pistol. One of my uncles always had a pistol, a little revolver, be a
Yeah.
cowboy guy. But but whatever they were chasing, I couldn't see. It was dark and it was really quiet. There was no wind. And when you're that far out, well, for one, Montana doesn't have a big population, and especially on the reservations, it's not very big at all. So town was 15 miles away, and we're way out off of an irrigation canal, and then down into the country in this valley. A lot of
Mhm.
trees down in there.
Yeah.
It's quiet. It's really, really quiet, and you could see the stars just clear. There's no light pollution. It's way out there, and it was a quiet night. And as I see them yelling, I'm looking all over the ground. I'm thinking, are they trying to chase away a bear? Like I really thought it was a bear, and I wanted to see it, you know.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see anything. There was nothing, and I wondered if there might have been wild dogs, because I knew about those already, and I was looking coyotes, something, and I couldn't see anything. But all of a sudden, I started hearing like these old men. They were talking like off over where they were yelling at that way, and I looked. I couldn't see them, and finally I looked up on top of that horse trailer, and there was about 7 or 8 of those owls, and they were all speaking Blackfeet.
Oh my goodness.
And they
Up in a
were
tree?
no on top of the horse trailer. They were
Oh,
just sitting on
oh,
top of it. Yeah,
oh my
and
goodness.
I couldn't see all of them, but I could see like I don't know silhouettes, but I could see like those first two or three,
Mm-hmm.
and they were looking at my uncles and they were talking, and I didn't know what they were saying. I couldn't really hear,
Uh-huh.
but I could make out they were speaking Blackfeet.
Oh my
um,
God.
I'm just standing there staring. I can't believe in my little mind I'm thinking they they talk. They can
Yeah.
Blackfeet, like how really? I didn't know these things could talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Owls could
And
talk Blackfeet, apparently.
yeah,
Wow.
and my mom grabbed me and she jerked me away. She said, "Get back in that house." And I think that's another reason I remember that so well, because when she pulled me, she was so scared she actually hurt my neck. And
Oh,
she
wow.
like jerked me back into the house. I remember it hurt my neck.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I don't know what happened after that. I I don't know how that got resolved, but
Mm-hmm.
after that, my grandma, she passed away, and that our family kind of fell apart. My uncle
Oh,
lost his wife, and
oh my
before long,
goodness.
he lost a daughter. The
Oh
other
my
uncle's
gosh.
family fell apart.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, they're messengers, and if you don't
Yeah.
if you don't listen to them, or kind of take their warning,
Mm-hmm.
I think that doesn't do you any favors. You gotta
Yeah.
gotta let, because those, let me make this clear to everybody. They weren't physical. They were spirits that we were
Okay.
seeing. They
Okay.
were spirits, yeah. And that was the first paranormal experience that I had that I could remember. Was
Yeah.
was that one.
Yeah. Do you think the number of them was significant at all? Or how many
I
there
don't know.
were? Yeah.
When I think about it, I think, geez, that they had a lot to say, and
Yeah.
my uncles chased them away. So maybe each one of them had a message. I have no idea. I'm just kind of
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
spitballing here, but the
Yeah.
message was big, and there was
Mm-hmm.
a there's hard times coming,
Yeah.
and that changed everything for everybody that night. Even my sisters that take care of me when their mom passed, their dad kind of just went, nuts, and like they were left alone out there, way out in the country by
Oh my
themselves.
gosh.
Sometimes they didn't have food, and I went to the boarding school because I didn't want to be around all of that,
Yeah.
and I was pretty much abandoned down there at times. It felt like,
Oh
you
yeah. I'm
know,
so sorry.
it was tough for everybody.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Death can do that. My goodness. What was I gonna ask? I'm like trying to take that all in. So, and there was no more talk about, no one talked to you about it or anything like that after that? Your mom didn't come around and say anything to you about that experience, or you were just kind of left to put those pieces together on your own after that occurrence?
Well, yeah. Well, later on in life, when I, become older and been around a lot of ceremonies, been around a lot of, well, one of my uncles was a holy man. So once I was around all that, I start understanding, that see that spirit there, that of that animal, that CP that one there, he's got a hard job because he's the one that brings the messages, and a lot of times they're not good.
Hmm.
So people are scared of them.
Yeah.
They don't like them. They always trying to push them away, things
Yeah.
like that. But he's got a hard job. That spirit there does.
Yeah. And you've said that they appear to us in ways that we can recognize
Hmm.
these spirits.
A
Would you
lot of
mind?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, say, I guess an example that comes to my mind is, you know how they describe the angels in that Bible.
Mm.
The old way where they're just like this big eyeball or many
Yes.
eyeballs.
They're
Yeah, they're
terrifying
just,
looking. Yeah.
yeah, they, if they all showed up looking like that, we wouldn't even be able to get their message. We'd be so scared, or,
Yeah.
something like that, and we wouldn't. And what's more is like, they're not bound by a certain shape either. They're not bound by a form or a shape. Like, I think you can, like, as a human, if a human passed away in a bad way and they were stuck, I think they would keep their same general form. But like the
Yeah.
ones that have already passed and went over, and then they come back to help people, those
Hmm.
are the ones that can pretty much take any shape that they want. You know, like in the old stories, you hear about warnings like don't take that stick into your house or into your lodge. Don't take that rock you found in. There's a certain ways because those spirits can make themselves like that and get into your
Oh,
dwelling,
yeah.
you know, things like that. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
if they want you to understand that, oh, hey, I'm just a stick. You don't have to worry about me. They're trying to trick you to
Yeah.
let them in.
Hmm.
So that's what it is. They can take on any shape, but usually it's something we understand. Like the ones that are trying to help us, we they'll show up and something we can kind of grasp, and and not be too afraid of. But don't get me wrong, even the good ones that show up are they surprise you. They're kind of scary because it's like, what, really? You know, that's
Yeah.
real. Like that just happened. You know, they're surprising. So
Yeah.
they try to do things. You know, I've noticed that that doesn't really surprise you like that. Like
Yeah.
some of the other spirits, like when I'd go to my uncle's ceremonies, they would come in there. They would come in those ceremonies, and they didn't even need walls. They would just go right through everything. There was no. They didn't need like walls meant nothing to them.
Yeah.
For instance, like in a sweat, you know, it's just a dome. You get that door to the east. Well,
Mhm.
you could be sitting in there and you could reach up and actually touch the roof. That's where you're like if you brought something in, like say you always smudged with a certain feather and you wanted to sweat with your feather, you'd put it in the top somewhere
Okay.
and
Yeah.
you'd sweat with it. Well, you know where the top's at, where the roof's at. When
Hmm.
these certain spirits would come, like this eagle used to always come to his, and it would hover above you and just flap its wings,
Oh,
and
wow.
you'd feel that wind. In a sweat, when there's wind, like if you blow on yourself, you know, it's hot,
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
hot. But that's what it would do, and it would just stay above you and just kind of fan you. But it was well above that roof, way
Oh, so
above
you,
it.
oh my goodness. So you could feel it even though it was above the roof?
Yeah, because you could
Oh,
hear it
wow.
where it was at. It was, geez, I don't know, about 2.5, 3 feet above you,
That's so
and
cool.
the roof's not even a foot above you. You
Hmm.
know, maybe a
Yeah.
little more.
It's like there for support and some air conditioning effects.
Well, it's really hot. It's the opposite in
Yeah.
the sweat. That's that blessing they give you. They give you that heat.
Wow.
Yeah, the
Oh, okay.
blessing.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Um, my goodness. That reminds me, I had an experience where I was trying this meditation for the first time. I don't know if you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is, but it was like a heart meditation. And
mm,
I wasn't even really thinking about it. I just followed, I like read about it, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this meditation. And I started, it was like very deep breathing in. And before I knew it, I was just in this meditation. I was breathing deeper, filling my lungs more than I ever had, to the point where I started to get a little freaked out. Like the back of my neck started pounding, and I started feeling like, woo, like it might pop out of my body or something. And so I went outside to get grounded and put my feet on the ground. And
mm,
I was like crying and everything, and then I couldn't figure out how to start breathing normally again because like I couldn't make my lungs get smaller again. Like, oh my goodness.
mm,
And so I just gave thanks to the sun, and as I turned to give thanks to the trees, just trying to calm myself down and ground, this hawk, what do you call him? It was like a red hawk, swooped down as I was turning. I like kind of opened my eyes to turn, and literally when I got to 90 degrees, this red hawk swooped down and like made eye contact with me. And as I turned, I went to look for where this hawk went, and I don't know where it went. I couldn't find it. And um, I just wonder whether that was a real hawk or not, because I was really having a moment there. So yeah, that's interesting. But it was very reassuring and calming to see that hawk. It was like it was almost like it was checking on me, but also like you're okay. You're gonna be okay. But
yeah, you
yeah,
probably seen a spirit or a helper. You know, we call
yeah,
them too as a helper. Because the elders always said to focus when you're doing things. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of laughter in those ceremonies and around them, but when you're actually in there and you're doing it and you're praying and you're trying to help others, you really got to focus. And it's like a form of meditation. Praying is like a form of meditation. So
yeah,
what happens is you get rid of everything that's in your mind, and you just whatever that thing is that you're focusing on is like the whole thing. You're not thinking about, oh, did I leave my car window down? Oh, did I, that's all gone. And
yeah,
so when that's gone and you're just focused on this one thing, you actually you're opened up, and it's
mhm,
easier for them to come to you and interact with you if they want to. It's not up to us. A lot of people they think it's up to us that they're gonna come and have let you see them or whatever. It's not. It's totally up to them. If they think they need to be there and they think you need to hear this, they'll they'll step in. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it's out of your control. You don't really have that, but you can make it easier for them to come if you're open like that. But there's also a cautionary tale with that. Before you do that, you should always, in our way, we'll ask the Creator, that not be not to protect us, like when we're doing things like say we were to, like me personally, say I was to meditate, I would ask for that protection because if I'm so open, what's to say that this thing that's just passing by wouldn't want to come in and see what's up and it might not be good. So
Yeah,
there's some caution to that, yeah.
it's a good point. I didn't think about that. I probably should pray before I do that, a meditation like that again, especially, do you think it makes a difference if you're inside or outside?
No, I think it's all about in your mind. If you can focus on what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
good enough, yeah, it
Yeah.
makes it easier. So it really don't. I mean, it helps to be outside. Don't get me wrong. Like, say you're way out there, just all by yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
how fasting is done in our way. You're all out there by yourself, and it's outside.
Mm-hmm.
You stay out there 4 days, 4 nights without any food or water, and
Wow.
you're trying to get the spirits to come and whatever you're there for. There's always a reason that you're fasting. It could be you're helping a family member, or you're trying to gain medicine so you can help the people, or whatever it is. That's
Yeah.
kind of why you're out there. And but to answer your question, I don't think it matters too much, just as long as you're getting your mind right, because there are people that have never been to ceremonies, know nothing about our ways or anything like that, but they have these experiences all the time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
because of how their minds are, especially the non-speaking autistic children. They really have that gift.
Yeah. So you've heard the telepathy tapes?
I've
I heard
I've
about them.
I've listened to a few snippets here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just something that came to mind. They're really spiritually connected, and a lot of the things that our elders talk about, I heard some of those things in that telepathy tape they were talking about. I'm like, yeah, elders talk about that same thing.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And I'm so glad that this information's coming out.
Mhm.
Yeah. Learning about
Yeah,
it.
me too. Yeah.
Yeah. I would highly recommend anybody listen to the telepathy tapes if you haven't already. I listened to them and it's like I think there might be more I haven't heard yet, but it's mind blowing and it's like gets you it opens your heart too to listen to it and you just the things they say and I'm sure obviously it happened with you too. It just resonates. You just know in your spirit that like yes, what they're saying is true and like somehow you just know that you know that you know. It's like a reminder.
Well, see, I have a boy that had a traumatic brain injury, and he's nonverbal now.
Oh
And the
yeah.
things that happened with him, I had a lady email me from my podcast, one of the listeners, and she suggested that I listen to those, and so I listened to a few of them. Well, not all of it either, just parts here and there.
Yeah.
And I think, well, we've always known that my son could, he travels. So we call it traveling because
Hmm.
it's happened to me, it's happened to my wife, and I think some of that gets passed to the kids,
Oh yeah.
and my boy has traveled. So when he first had that injury, they had to fly him to Denver, and he was almost dying in the air,
Oh my
and they
God.
had to emergency land in Casper, and a guy had to relieve the pressure in his brain,
Oh
cut a piece of the
Jesus.
skull out and
Oh
relieve
my
that pressure.
God.
So he makes it to Denver after that, and
Jesus.
his vitals are dropping. He's in intensive care, and it's not looking good. And I'm on the phone with my wife, and she's crying, and we're both crying and just praying and everything. And she said, "I gotta go. His vitals are really dropping." And as soon as she hung up, where he used to sit and play with that little Nintendo, had a little TV there and everything right by the sliding glass doors, and that TV turned on and the game turned on. And I looked over there and
Oh
I
my God.
said, "No, my boy," I said, "You gotta go back. You gotta go
Wow.
back. Mom's waiting for you." you can't be here right now. You have to go back,
Yeah.
back into your body. Don't travel yet. You're not ready yet. Just go
Hmm.
back. And so I turn off all that stuff and I light my smudge and I'm smudging for him. And I'm asking the creator to bring him back, to
Hmm.
guide him if that's what he needs. And anyways, she calls back and she said, his vitals went back up. They just all of a sudden went back. And so another time, uh, he had this little room thing that I made for him, like a little playroom with blankets and stuff, and he could have his own little space, and he likes that.
Hmm.
And so I made him this little playroom thing one time, and he had a TV in there and his game, and whatever he liked to take in, or snacks. And he was gone. He was gone. He wasn't there, and physically there, he was gone. And anyways, I was home, and all of a
Wait,
sudden
he wasn't physically there?
no, he wasn't like with me at the time.
Okay.
He was at another place. He was at
Okay.
his mom,
Oh, oh,
and
okay.
yeah, with my wife. And next thing you know, I'm home and his light turns on, and same thing. His TV turned on and his little game turned on. And I walk over there and I open that curtain. And I thought, huh, he's here. He shouldn't be here. Like, well, I better just pray for him anyways. I mean, I don't care if he's here, but he shouldn't be. See, because a lot of times when you travel, you're not supposed to stay there too long when you travel because you're in that spirit world. And if you're
Hmm.
there too long, what what I really don't understand, to tell you the truth, but they say
Yeah.
you get this stink on your spirit. And if
Okay.
that stays with you, you can't come back. You'll die. So
Oh,
you
wow.
can't stay gone too long because that I don't know why they refer to it as a stink either, but that's what they say, that it stays on your spirit and you won't be able to come back. So I just prayed that he was okay, but
Yeah.
things like that, and you can tell, like you can tell the things that he's seen. When you look at somebody, you can just tell they've seen a lot. Like they've
Hmm.
seen a lot. He
Yeah.
has that look a lot of
Yeah.
times, and
Yeah.
there's times where he in our old house before we bought this house, we were renting, and we didn't put up barriers. We stayed in a townhouse, but they were joined, so it was
Okay.
just like, and we stayed on one side. Well, there was this little girl spirit that used to run into my neighbor's house
Hmm.
and then over to the other neighbor's house on this side. Scared the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, my boy started getting scared to go out and use the bathroom at night because he would stay up late on the weekends, and he I mean he was scared. He wouldn't go out of his
Yeah.
room, and so I start wondering, is he seeing that girl? Because people like that are really, like nonverbal type.
Yeah.
They are really connected to that spirit world. I don't know why that is. I really don't. But
Yeah.
so all of this is kind of why I looked at those telepathy tapes. I
Yeah.
need to get through all that because I didn't get through it all yet.
Hmm.
But
Oh, wow.
I'd like to sit down and just go through it all and see what I think. Because pretty sure, because some of the things I have heard on there are they're tracking with our type of spirituality, what we were taught.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like I think I said to you, I think you guys have it right. It resonates so much. Um, yeah, you need to finish those tapes. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. It's fascinating. It's been a few months since I listened to them, but oh my goodness, yeah. And thank you so much for sharing those stories about your son.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
cool. How old is he? Is he able to write yet or
He can write, but it's not very well.
hmm.
Like he can write. Like when we can't communicate with him, um, because we could use sign language, like
Hmm.
some sign language he'll understand. But
Hmm.
when it gets to the point where that's not cutting it, write to him and he'll write back, but it's just simple, little like something like USB. He wants a memory stick and he'll say USB SD.
Oh
He'll
my
write that
goodness.
on there. And
Rod,
so
once, oh my goodness. When he starts communicate, like finds an outlet to communicate, he's gonna have so much to say. You guys are gonna be like, oh my God.
yeah.
I bet you. Oh, that's so awesome. That's really exciting. Um, oh my goodness. So, yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, and what were you saying about if you're there in the spirit world for too long, you come back with a stink. That also reminds me of what they say about people that travel to the fairy realm. You're not supposed to eat the food there, or you can't come
Mm,
back either. So that's very interesting that there's like a parallel there.
yeah.
Um, yeah. But you had another experience you had that was very interesting. You had what exactly happened? You had a health scare where you had to have surgery.
Hmm.
And you had a helpful spirit there with you because you kind of misunderstood the nurse, from what I understand,
Yeah.
and you could have really hurt yourself. Would you mind sharing that story? Because that's awesome.
Yeah. So I had a appendicitis when I was in about the fourth grade, and I didn't know what it was, and I was always wanting to go and play. It's like a typical kid, but I think I took it to the extreme because I bared that pain. I went to a fair. I rode rides while I was having this attack,
Oh my gosh, you've
and
got a high pain tolerance.
I was just a kid, and I was just
Yeah.
too worried about missing out, because once
Yeah.
a year we'd go to this fair, and I really wanted to be there, so I just toughened it out. But
My
when I
gosh.
got back, I couldn't. One night I woke up, I just couldn't take it anymore. So my mom she worked nights, and my dad was there, and he brought me up to that hospital. And by the next morning, I mean, I had to suffer that whole night, and they couldn't get me out until the next morning. And
Oh
they drove
no.
me down, but my folks, they waited. I went down there by myself, and uh, I just remembered being put out, and by the time I got there, it was a bumpy ride down, and it really hurt. It's a lot of pain.
Oh,
123 miles away in an ambulance, and
oh my goodness.
so I get there, and they put me out. I wake up, and my mom's there, and she said, "Your dad's gonna be coming, but he went to your uncle's house. He's gonna ask him for help, to help you heal and everything." And so, like a day or two later, my dad showed up, and he said, "Yeah, I spoke to him, and he said he's gonna send a spirit down to help you and get through this all and everything." And so, my mom and dad would leave at night and go stay, I think, in a hotel or something. Maybe I don't know where they stayed, but I would stay there at night by myself. And one of those nights, the nurse said, "Yeah, you know, the more you can exercise, you're gonna help yourself heal. You're gonna re-strengthen those muscles." And I thought, okay. And so she left, and it was one night. It was dark, and I guess my sleep must have been out of whack because I was wide awake, but it was in the middle of the night, and so I start trying to sit up, and there was like two hands on me on my chest. I couldn't, and I didn't feel like hands. I felt like a just a pressure, but it felt like coming from two areas, just, and it's almost like it was paralyzing me, like to not move. Like if you ever had sleep paralysis, or when a spirit's messing with you, sometimes they can do that.
I
That's
have,
what it
yeah.
felt like. It felt more like that. Like I just couldn't. I mean, I could move and everything. Don't get me wrong, but I could not do that one thing of sit up, and I was sitting up on my own all the time. So I was trying to do sit-ups, and that's what I was gonna start doing. And the nurse comes the next day, and I said, I I said, "So all I gotta do is exercise on me?" But she said, "No, not right now. If you do that, you can tear them stitches. You don't do that." She said, "You're really gonna hurt yourself. If
My
if that
goodness.
happens, they're gonna have to go in and reattach everything, like
Oh my
because they cut a little
goodness.
bit of muscle when they're getting into you, so they're gonna have to go
Ooh,
back. They
yeah.
have to go back in there." And so, anyways, when we went back, I got done with that, and I was released from the hospital, and my uncle said to come back out once I'm better and I'm healed and everything like that. He says, "Come back out." Um, and so we did. And one night they were having a ceremony out there, and we went out. And this ceremony is, it's not like a sweat, but they had it in this house. This house was shaped like a horseshoe, like because there was a wall, and it was just one like a square, but with a wall there. So there would be a living room, a dining area, and then a kitchen. It was just small, old time house. It was really old, and that's all they had in there. And they were all lined up on the west side, like in a sweat. And they had all their you know, their holy stuff out and things like that. And there were lights on until it was time. Everybody was in, and then they sealed off all the doors, the two doors, and then all the windows were covered, and they smudged them and prayed, and they sealed everything, barriered it all off. Then they started singing, calling in those spirits. I think they were doctoring somebody in there too. That's healing. How could I say that? It's kind of like a spiritual healing where those
Mhm.
spirits come in and help. I'm pretty sure they were doctoring somebody that night, but we went to the ceremony because he said to show up when I got better. And so we sit right against the wall, like opposite the front door. As soon as you walk in, that's where we sat. And
Mhm.
there was people everywhere. It must have been about 40 people in there. There was a lot.
Wow.
And I was up against the wall with my dad, and my dad was next to me, and I'm just kind of holding on to his arm because gets dark once you're getting ready to start. There's can't have light in there. And so I remember at first I hear this rattle from where those men were. This rattle start moving around in there, and it come by me, and like if I could reach out, it'd be just a little out from me, and it come around, and I could hear it. It went in the back, and I'm just sitting there and just listening, and you know, can't see anything. It's so dark you can't even see your hand, and all of a sudden, through the wall in the back, that rattle touches me, two, three times, and I kind of pulled my arm away, and I told my dad, I said, Dad, that rattle touched me through that wall. I was scared, and he said, "Oh, don't worry." He said, "They're just blessing you. Don't worry about it. It's good. It's a good thing.
Mhm.
Now be quiet. Now be quiet." And so I just sit there and just be quiet, and I kept hearing those birds in there too. I could those a lot of times those birds come.
Mhm.
Just different spirits, but these ones were birds too, and there was like two or three of them in there just flying around. They would do the same thing, just fly over somebody,
Oh
and
my
they'd move
goodness.
along with another one. Yeah, that those guys were the old. They were the old ones that were really, really powerful. With their ceremonies.
Yeah, and when they would fly over someone and hover over someone, were they blessing them? Were they healing
Mm,
them? Okay.
blessing, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that doctrine would take place up there. They have different things for it. Like I guess people might not really understand what that is. So one time, I'll tell this story from my wife's family. This man showed up. Okay, so her grandpa, when he was a small boy, he used to talk about this, what he's seen. He would tell the grandkids, and he would tell this story. So when he was small, his grandpa had this medicine, and one time a guy showed up from across the border from Canada because our res is right on the Canadian border, and our other two bands are on that side of the border, and we're the southern Upscappi Picani, the southern Picani down here. And so, anyways, he shows up, and I want to say he was from Canada, and he was gut shot. He had gotten shot,
Oh my gosh.
and he showed up for help, and his grandpa told him, you're gonna see some things here, but you can't be scared. Just don't be scared of whatever you see here. But I'm gonna tell you to do some things and just do them, okay? And don't worry about it. Don't be afraid. It's okay. And he was just a boy at the time. I don't know how old, but I think around 10 is what I imagine.
Oh my goodness.
So he was helping his grandpa, and that man, he had him lay down, and there was a robe, and that's what my wife's grandpa had to put over him and to cover him head to toe in that hide. I mean, I don't know what kind of hide it was, but like a robe to
Hmm.
cover him up. And that old man starts his songs. Every in our way, every medicine's got a song. They're taught. Those spirits teach you how to do it in a certain way, and so part of that songs you have to sing those certain songs that they teach you. calls on them, and it makes it work. Well, anyways, he starts singing as he gets done, and he tells my wife's grandpa, now pull that robe off him. He pulled it off of him, and it was just a skeleton laying there. It wasn't no man, it was just a skeleton laying there. And he gets up and he goes over and he picks that bullet out of that skeleton, out of those bones. He says, now put it back over him. So he puts it back over him and he does it in reverse, I imagine, and did the last part of it. And when he was done doing whatever he did, he told him, now pull that robe back. Pulled it back, and that man said he was fully healed. No more bullet in him,
Oh
nothing.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
So
That is
that's
awesome.
doctoring. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what that is. And how that
Wow.
came,
That's
how that came was
wow.
years and years ago. There was this Blackfeet raiding party. They were going to go after horses. They were going to go steal horses from another neighboring tribe, and they ended up getting caught. And when they got caught, they had to run, and one of them got shot. There was two brothers in that group, and
Mhm.
one of them got shot, and they were hiding in this little tiny cave. They found a little cave, and they were hiding in it when they were trying to hit back toward Blackfeet country. And there was about four of them, and the one brother he was really worried about his brother, so he goes outside, and he's just standing out there, and he sees a snake on the ground, in those rocks, and tells that he looked at that snake and he said, I'm gonna offer it some, I'm gonna feed it, I'm gonna give it some pemmican. So he reached in his pouch and he just put it out for that snake, gave it an offering, just
Yeah.
you do that, and so um all of a sudden he's standing there, and he sees this woman come walking up, all dressed in buckskin. She comes walking up and she said, I seen what you done for my people right then. I seen you feed one of my children. I seen you. She says, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to show you how to save your brother. And so she showed him. She says, it's going to sound like I'm approaching each time, but I'll come back. I'll get closer to you, closer to you, closer to you, and finally I'll be there. And then I'll come back again. When I undo that, I'll be back out. And I'll be singing. I'll show you these songs and everything. And so that's what happened. She was teaching him how to doctor that. And he was standing there. These other two come out of that cave and they're looking at him. They go, hey, you all right? He was just in a trance. He was just
Yeah.
staring, like asleep, standing up, just but with the eyes wide open, just in a trance.
Yeah.
Finally, he come out of that and he says, hey, I know what to do. Let's do this. I can help him. And so he went in and he helped his brother with that. And that medicine, it stayed in our tribe for a little while until my wife's grandpa's grandpa was like the last one to use it. And when he passed, he took that medicine with him back over.
Okay.
Not here anymore. It went with him.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe he'll bring it back someday and bring it back to the family. Who knows?
Well, see, those sometimes those things that's an example of a personal medicine. And
Mm.
usually those things don't stay here very long. They only
Okay.
stay with the person. I guess
Okay.
one more story about that is
Yeah.
um here was this kid. Um, he stayed out in Heart Butte. It's a place on the res, a community on the res. My
Mm-hmm.
father-in-law told me this story. He said, he says that when he was small, he says it must have been, early 1900s. They were getting wood. They had a wagon. And he went out with those men, and when they stopped and they got to this wooded area and they go out to go chop that wood down, he says, I'm just going to stay here by this wagon. I'm tired. I'm just going to take a nap. So he sat up against that wagon wheel and he fell asleep. He says he woke up and he seen this older Indian, and he was dressed in buckskin too. He come walking up to him like that, and he's walked right up to him. He says, come with me. I'm going to show you something. And so that boy got up and he followed him. He says, there's going to come a time where there's a sickness that's going to befall your people, and you're not going to be able to fight it. No one's going to be able to fight it, but I'm going to show you how to beat it. And he brings him out in those woods right there, and he's showing him all these different roots and herbs, how to mix them, what to do with them, and he teaches him the songs that go along with each one. And just then, when he was done teaching him, that boy woke up, and those men were coming back, and they said that he's kind of acting frantic. "Hey, give me something to write with and write on, give me something." He was trying to not forget. He says, "I need to remember this." And so he found something, and he was able to scribble it down. And that man, he cured cancer in our tribe all the way up into the 80s when he passed.
Oh my
And this,
goodness.
yeah, this is a story my father-in-law told. See, and again,
Yeah.
he was asleep, and he was taken by that spirit,
Mm-hmm.
because he was in that spirit world, and they went and he showed him something while he was there. That's that duality. His body didn't obviously go with him; his spirit did, and he
Yes.
was showing those things. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And
Mhm.
he, oh my goodness. And so that was his medicine that he received, and then he took that with him when he left.
Yeah.
That okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that type usually goes with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't usually get passed,
Yeah.
you know.
So it was just for that time and that, I guess, certain amount of time.
Hmm.
And then, okay. Oh my gosh, those stories are so cool. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Um, so let me see. I know we're getting down to the hour here. There's like so many questions I have for
I
you.
know. We might have to do it again.
I know. Well, let's talk about the little people because that's something I'm interested in. That's not something I've heard a whole lot about. Would you mind just telling us, what's your understanding of the little people and if you have any stories about them?
Yeah, so the books at the peaks, the little people, our old relationship with them before colonization happened was kind of like kind of like traded with them for things. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of the main things they did for us, because my tribe didn't farm. We followed the buffalo, the plains culture.
Mm-hmm.
And we followed their migrations and stuff. So we would never plant crops. So that was the only crop we ever planted was tobacco. And there were whole societies around that, how to do it, and what spirits help you with that,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And so the agreement that they always had was with those little people. When they left, they would they had the whole ceremony. Everything was done in such a way, and they would plant those seeds. Because it's a really hard thing to grow. It's not an easy thing to grow,
Mm-hmm.
especially in northern Montana.
Yeah.
So those they would make those agreements with those little people, and kind of like a treaty they had with them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they would leave, those little people would cultivate that tobacco for them, and by the
Wow.
next year, when they would make their way all the way back around again to that spot,
Mm-hmm.
they would harvest that tobacco. So that was
My
one of the
goodness.
things that they had, with those spirits that would help them, those little ones, and
Mm-hmm.
they're they're really powerful. You have to remember the small things are the most powerful. That it really is. It's how it is.
Okay.
Imagine So you can make a comparison. Imagine if you had a black hole that was only as big as, say, a penny. That
Mm-hmm.
thing would still wreak havoc on everything, right, around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Small things are really, really powerful. And
I've never
so
heard that before. I've never heard that before. I like that. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like that. But
Yeah.
um so there's times where they show up, like there's stories of them living with people. They'll
Mm-hmm.
actually stay in the house. Like there was this old man that lived down by the Badlands, and he had one that stayed with him.
Mm-hmm.
Certain holy men, they had them around their houses too.
Mm-hmm.
And what they look like is just little people about maybe a foot tall,
Mm-hmm.
just small, but they're all proportionate. They don't look goofy. They look like us, but just small,
Just small.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they have
small.
clothes on. They wear clothing
Clothes.
and
The old way, they dress like the old way. They look like like a snapshot from the 1700s. They're just old. They're
Oh
old
wow.
people. How they look
Okay.
and but
Yeah.
they're really really like you don't fool with them. You don't try to find them.
Hmm.
You don't do things like that with them. One lady, I didn't catch the whole story. My cousin was telling me it, and she was at a ceremony and she was young. She walks in on all of her aunties one night, and the kids ain't allowed to hear a lot of these things until later, until they're a little grown. And they
Hmm.
were still deemed too young to be around them when they're talking about things like that. And so her and her cousin walk in, and those women didn't hear them there. They were standing there and they were listening. And one of them said, "Yeah, and that lady, she was messing with those little people, so they waited for her to go to sleep. And when she went to sleep, they took out all her teeth, and they just put them back in EOA. And so when she woke up, she couldn't talk right, and that's how they left her because she was bothering them. And then they looked at, "What are you kids doing in here?" She said, "That's all I got to hear."
Terrifying.
Yeah, they're powerful, and if you think about it, that was like a slap on the wrist. That was a
Yeah.
don't do that again, because they could you know take your life. They're really
Yeah.
powerful. We
Oh my goodness.
actually had a society that was given to us by those little people, and it's
Uh,
still around today. They taught the songs to it and everything. They taught the whole how you do the whole thing, and it was really a
oh,
warrior society. I mean, that story alone I could tell, but I think we're getting too close. But
yeah.
yeah, I
Uh,
think we should ask it. But anyways, they're really powerful. We had a really close relationship with them up until this day.
Good. Well, what's their history? I mean, so you said they're more spirit than physical. Um, are they related to human beings or are they something completely separate?
Well, they're their own spirit. They're their own thing.
Okay.
They're not humans. They're not like
Okay.
us. They
Okay.
are like us. Don't get me wrong, but they're specifically these little people. Now, where
Okay.
does that come from? Does that come
Yeah.
from a small race of people from a long time ago? I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah,
No
I get it.
idea.
All right. That's
Yeah,
what I was wondering. Okay. All right. That's so interesting.
it
Um,
is.
what was the question? Well, there's one story you tell. You brought up your cousin. I don't know if this is the same cousin, but
No.
one of your cousins, I believe you guys were swimming in a river or a creek, and she
Yeah.
got. Do you want to tell that story? Because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So at one point growing up at Two Medicine in that valley, something happened to the water, and I never caught what it was. I just remember my grandpa telling us all and my aunt telling us all, "You guys stay away from that creek. Don't go down there. There's something bad in that water. Something bad got in there. So you guys stay away from it until they can come out and cleanse it, and they're gonna do a ceremony. But till then, you guys need to stay away from there." And I lived on that creek every day I was down there. It was hard for me to stay away from it. I mean, it was really hard. It was grueling. That was my playground. That's like telling a kid, "Don't go play." I was like
Yeah.
so distraught. I was like kicking rocks around, moping. I looked down there and like, "Geez, man," and to even I'd have to cross that creek to get to my uncle's just to get a horse. We didn't have any on our side. I mean, I was so cut off. It was a hard time. Well, anyways, I,
Yeah.
I walk down through the trees, and I go all the way down to my cousin's house, and about a mile or so away. And I come up at those trees, and I get to her house, and I said, "Hey, there's a green hole down there," because I got it in my mind that day. You know what? I'm gonna go down there, but I'm gonna go down there with somebody my age. Well, at least I won't be alone. I got my dogs, but I want somebody with me. I'm gonna go swim. I'm just gonna go. I've had it. And there was nobody home but me, so I went down and I picked her up, and there was nobody home at her house. And we were out in the country alone in each of our places. And I told her, I said, "Come on, you want to go down?" They didn't hear nothing about the warning there. And I
Oh,
knew it. I don't know how I knew, but I knew it. And so I go down and I tell her, "Come on, let's go, and I'll show you where we swim. There's a green hole just right up here, man. I don't think you've been there, but it's really a nice one." So we go up there, and there was a like a fence, like this wire fence, but they're like rectangles like this, and a whole bunch of them. It's made out of wire though, and it was holding this bank together like a bunch of rocks. It rolled
Uh-huh.
off of that irrigation canal and it fell down into the river and it wedged itself sideways so the river flowed over it. And it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of like up at an angle as the river went over. And that little undercurrent that it caused dug out this really nice green hole. It was perfect. We could jump off of that and into it,
Uh-huh.
and so it was perfect by the time the water went down and got clear after the flooding. It was
Mm-hmm.
just totally dug out. Geez, it was nice. And I showed her, I said, look, this is what we do. I walked off that bank and I dove in and I come back up and I got on that bank with her and she went down. And, you wade down out to about your knees, about
Mm-hmm.
knee high in that water, then you jump in. That's what we were doing. And
Uh-huh.
so that's how you do it. So I could try it. So she tries it, jumps in, and we're all happy. And she comes up. The sun was right behind me. So it must have been around noon. It was right behind me that way.
Yeah.
And she comes up and I see her because the sun is shining down through the water. I see her face. She's smiling coming up, and she gets about this far from the top of the water. I mean, she's almost there. I mean, her hands are almost there. They're not fully extended. She's just one more push, she'll be up. Then her eyes get big, and she gets really concerned, and she starts
God.
going down. Her face is
Oh,
coming back down, and I got scared. I just reached in and I grabbed her hands and I just pulled with everything I had.
oh my
I pulled
gosh.
back. She almost pulled me in with her. Whatever that was, almost pulled me
Yeah.
in. I jerked her out and she was screaming. I could see bubbles coming out of the water. And I could hear her. She was screaming in those bubbles. And I pulled her out. She come out screaming. Something
Yeah.
grabbed me. Something grabbed me. Something grabbed me. And we went over to the side of the bank and we sat down. And she said, "See right here. It's on her left ankle." And there was a handprint of a man's hand. Grabbed her so hard it just left like a red. Even the skin was imprinted, but it was
Yeah.
red on it when
Oh
it
my
grabbed her.
goodness.
And I took her back up to her house, and I was scared to tell my grandpa and them because they warned us not to go down there. That's one of those suitipis or the water spirits,
Okay.
that grabbed her and did that.
I was gonna, oh no. How big was the handprint?
Like a man like mine.
Oh
It
wow.
was a big hand. It was a man's hand.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
big. It was bigger than mine, way bigger than mine.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that if it was like a really, really big handprint or some or like yeah. But that's
Yeah.
what it was. It was a
Hmm.
water spirit.
Yeah, a sweet tippy. That's what took
S-
her or tried to.
Yeah. What are those? I mean, are they physical,
So
spiritual? Are
they're
they like
spirit, yeah.
mermaids? Or no?
Mm,
No.
mermaids are no. The closest thing we have to a mermaid, I guess, would be what we call a Okitopik, the water people. But they look
Okay.
like us. They're a spirit that looks like us, but they're from the water. How's that? They're an earth, a water elemental is what they are. That kind
Okay.
of a spirit. So, but this spirit, I don't know what it was. It could have been Okitopik. I just say Suitopik because I don't know really what it is. I didn't see it because
Yeah.
there's different water spirits. You'll have like you can have water dogs. Those are a
Mm-hmm.
type of spirit, And
Okay.
there's this huge. It's like a serpent looking thing, and that thing goes around in this place called Fourhorn Lake, and it's a sweet to pee too. So there's
Okay.
different types of see, and that's the part I always struggle with. Like, why do they? Some of them appear as this weird looking dog, some appear as a serpent, some appear as people. I always think it's something that we would kind of understand because they're not bound, by
Yeah.
any one thing, So I have questions too,
Yeah.
because the more you realize that's out there, the
Mm-hmm.
more you realize that you don't know anything. You don't know anything.
Yeah. It's like don't even try to like settle on anything because it's who knows. Oh my gosh. Yeah, well that's one thing. We're definitely gonna have to have you back because next time I want to talk about Bigfoot or
Oh
Sasquatch.
yeah,
Um but I feel like yeah, we're getting down. We've got 2 minutes left, but I would love to have you back to talk about that, and I'm sure there's a ton of other stuff we could talk about too. But
yeah. We Anytime you
Yeah,
want, we could do multiples.
yeah.
There's a lot left that I think your audience would really like to hear, and
Uh,
so I'm willing to share it. I love telling stories.
Good. I love hearing them. Thank you so much. I'm excited to have you back many
Please,
times.
yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. So, just in closing, um, do you have a message? It doesn't even have to be something we talked about tonight, but do you have a message that you'd like to leave everyone before we close out here? And I have you tell people where to find you. But
Yeah, I
first,
guess if I was to tell anybody, a message for, I guess, everybody would be, you know, don't don't worry about the things that you can't control that are out of your hands. These thoughts are so powerful that you can manifest sickness within yourself because you're worried about something. We can't take anything in this world with us over. So don't worry about anything. Just keep your thoughts good, and however everything works out is how it's meant to work out for you. And all of these things you might be going through hardship, those are blessings too because you learn from it. You learn from these things, so don't worry about just keep them straight and keep going forward, and you'll be good. But you can find me anywhere you get podcasts, Lodge Tales, Spotify, Audible, anywhere you find them. I even have a little YouTube where it kicks out a video over to YouTube, but it's just audio, but it's on YouTube as well, podcast.
okay.
Hmm.
Awesome. Awesome. And I listen to Lodge Tales and I love it. So I highly recommend you guys, you have to go over and check him out. He's awesome. Awesomeness. Well, thank you so much, Rod, for coming on, and I look forward to having you back again. And yeah, it's been awesome. And have a great
Yeah,
night, everybody. We're gonna close out. We're gonna say goodbye. Bye,
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.